This is Katie, co-host of Coffee with Keith and Katie. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media.
Oh, the sweet, sweet tones of Luther Vandross. That could only mean one thing. March Madness is back. Hi, everyone. I'm John Lauder.
And I'm Christian Heimel. We host the Cheap Seats Sports Podcast on Mondays. We're excited to invite you all to the first ever Public House Media Bracket Challenge.
Now is your chance to prove that you know more about college basketball than we do.
And then hear Johnny and I complain about it each week.
Oh, that's for sure. All you have to do is check out our Facebook page, the Cheap Seats Sports Podcast, find the link, and enter.
Only one entry per person, though. Prizes will go to the top listeners, especially the ones who beat out Public House Media hosts like John and myself.
And don't forget, to be eligible to win, you must like both the Cheap Seats Sports Podcast and the Public House Media Facebook pages.
That's simple, guys. 2 clicks. Like the pages, join the group, and good luck in the inaugural Public House Media Bracket Challenge.
Throughout history, the course of sports has been shaped by one thing: the fans.
From the moments you never dreamed of,
has saved the USA's life in this World Cup. Paul, the runner, loose ball, it's good. Gonzaga, the slipper still fits.
To the moments that still give you nightmares.
Behind the bag, it gets through Buckner. Here comes Knight, and the Mets win it. He's in. Patriots win the Super Bowl. Brady has his 5th.
through the good and the bad, fans have helped change the games we watch and the players we love.
They may not be the most logical people.
You are a factory of sadness!
I'll see you Sunday.
But they know their teams better than anybody.
They'll blow in the 9th.
You may not always see them, but you know where to find them.
After all, there's nothing quite like the view from the cheap seats.
Broadcasting as part of the Public House Media Network.
Grab a chair and enjoy all there is in
The cheap seats.
Good morning. Welcome upside the cheap seats. I'm Baxter Colburn alongside Matt Coyne as we get ready for another edition of the cheap seats here on Public House Media. How are we doing today, Matt?
I'm doing great. How about you?
Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad. It's cold again in the cheap seats, of course, as it is snowing once again as we are here. You feel like maybe they'd give us a blanket or something one of these days up here in the cheap seat. But we're real fans, right? We go shirtless to January games, and I don't. I freeze.
Yeah.
I don't like that.
And we overpay for everything. And
right, exactly.
Yeah.
That makes total sense to me. No,
yeah.
I'm never going to be one of those people that goes to a game shirtless. I have friends that have done that before. They've gone to Packers games shirtless before, like in the dead of December. I'm like, you were going to die.
yeah, I've never understood it, but hey, you know what?
What does it do? What does it do? I don't understand this.
I guess I think people look at them and be like, oh, look how big and bad they are.
Strong they are.
Yeah.
Wow, braving the elements like their forefathers before them. Maybe
Maybe they think it gives like a power.
Maybe.
I don't know.
I'm not sure about that. We are totally in support of how you celebrate your team, but there are certain fans out there that both Matt and I are just like, I don't know what you're doing there. So, be that as it may, we're not here to judge you, though, of course, right? We're here to talk about sports. We're here to have some fun. We are going to be joined in our third segment today by CBS 58 Sports Director down in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Kevin Holden, as part of our Calling Home segment, where we check in with different people that cover the teams that we're fans of in their home markets. So we're excited to be able to do that and have Kevin make his debut, and hopefully he can find his way all the way up here to the cheap seats. He's typically in the broadcast booth or down on the sidelines doing things, so we're excited to have Kevin joining us today. A reminder for you as well, too, the show comes out every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 6 a.m. Central Time over on Spreaker.com, wherever you get your podcasts, like Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, thephmedia.com as well, too, and just it all encompassing people that do things there for Public House Media as well, too. And, of course, we've got a Facebook page, The Cheap Seats Sports Podcast, or at The Cheap Seats PHM, however you want to find us. And, of course, they've got daily poll questions and other fun business that is coming at you as well, too. So, lots of stuff, lots of fun things, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's great.
Absolutely. All right, Matt, so we've got some quick headlines we want to get to, as we always do here inside the cheap seats. And I find it fitting that I feel like if we're going to if we're going to do things, we got to have music, right? I'm very much a big music kind of person, you know. You got to have things underneath us as we're doing things. So, and I think this keeps us on track as well, too, right? You got some headlines. So, and a lot of these headlines, I think, are, interesting in the sense that people have been hearing about these things. So, first quick headline, Peyton Manning is selling his Denver Papa John's franchises. And you hear about this, like, I own a franchise. I got 3 or 4. He has 31.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
When I read this article, I think it's sad that this is coming to an end. I think everybody looked forward to those Papa John's Peyton Manning commercials, and more.
Were they looking forward to him, though?
I liked them.
I mean, the first couple were good. I'd rather him what he's doing for, is it for Allstate now? Is that who he's singing music with now, right? Isn't he doing like the... Nationwide. That's not Allstate. I'm sorry. That's Allstate. That's different.
Yeah.
Nationwide.
No,
that's right. Now I'm sorry.
Yeah, you know what? I'll agree with you there, Baxter. The Nationwide ones are better than the Papa John ones.
I think so.
Okay.
But this coming obviously after the fact that the NFL and Papa John's have ended their deal, their partnership to make way for Pizza Hut. So, I mean, they've been saying it for years, no one out Pizza's the Hut, and now here we go.
Yeah.
We'll have to see.
Papa John's, he's not in the limelight anymore, huh?
Unfortunately not, but we had kind of heard rumors of things like this kind of taking place, potentially coming down the line, and now we are at that moment. So we'll see how that looks. The next headline, Ed Hockley. You may have recognized him more so by his biceps than you did his reffing, but he is retiring after 27 years of work as an official. But because of his retirement, that does make way for his son, Sean Hockley, to be promoted as a referee and take over for him now. So kind of the Hockley family will continue to be a part of the NFL.
I hope he is as buff and as...
Yeah, that has to be a requirement, I feel like.
And I also feel like he needs to over-explain every call, just like Ed Hockley.
Yeah.
So,
he just needs more screen time with his biceps.
Yeah.
Like, this was pass interference. And
I did not realize he was 67.
He is in very good shape.
Yeah. And
it's
Jeff
amazing.
Triplett, too, is retiring, which I always enjoyed him, but...
NFL's falling apart this year, man.
Yeah, no, I mean, without a Hockley, I don't know what they're going to do.
Who knows? Next quick headline. Steve Kerr came out this week saying that kids who go undrafted in the NBA draft should be allowed to go back to college. Yes or no, Matt?
I like that idea.
Yeah?
Yeah. There's different things here. I like it if they were fresh, one and done, and they want to go back. I'm okay with that. I didn't look too much into this, but I mean, I think it's a good idea. Get them a little bit better. Obviously, the league is not thinking they're ready, so why not go back and get a little bit better?
Yeah, I would agree with that as well, too. I mean, you look at all the major sports across the board. You've got minor league baseball for baseball. Obviously, you've got the AHL for hockey, and we've heard other hosts like Jeff and Max and Christian talk about this earlier in the week as well, too, but there's not a lot of... The G League is not the answer right now. The max you can make a year is $26,000.
Yeah.
I mean, that's less than, teachers and other people are getting paid as well, too. I mean, like, why would you want to go play quote-unquote professional basketball in America for $26,000? Depends on how much you love the game, So,
or you could be like the Ball brothers and just
go take over a team,
Yeah.
Oh boy, that's a whole other thing. But I agree with this. I like Steve Kerr's thought about this too. I think that makes the most sense, honestly, when it comes to the further development. And we'll talk about this later on as well too with one of our poll questions about the one and done rule as well too. So something to keep in mind. Something else that was a quick headline that you may have missed if you're not a big fan of the soccer world. Two quick things, actually. We want to start first by saying congratulations to the U.S. women's national team as they won the 2018 She Believes Cup with a 1-0 victory over England on Wednesday night, rather. Megan Rapinoe had the goal. It was technically an own goal because it bounced off an England player into the net. Goal's a goal. The U.S. wins the second of the three cups that have taken place, so 2016 and 2018. So congratulations to the ladies for that. But the big thing, have you ever lost a lot of money, like just obscene amount of money on an investment that just didn't turn out well for you, Matt?
Don't you have to have a lot of money first?
I think that's usually how that works.
Well,
so that's a no, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. I mean, I think maybe a few $100s for me, maybe, and that was, but even still. So if you follow the soccer world, Paris Saint-Germain, or PSG as they go by over in France, just got knocked out of the Champions League on aggregate 5-2 by Real Madrid, the reigning champions. And they're coming under a lot of fire, Matt, because they have spent a record 1.3 billion euros on players since 2011.
Wow. That's that. I'm looking here. What they've spent over the last few years. I mean, you got to be putting a championship product out on the field.
And they've never gotten past the quarterfinals in the Champions League. They've won multiple league titles, which in the soccer world, Ligue 1 that they play in France, it really is PSG's league to lose every year. So the fact that they're winning that just doesn't really matter. No one cares about that anymore. So
yeah, and I feel when we were talking about this off the air, I said, this reminds me of the Dodgers for a few years.
Right.
All that money. So I'm sorry I have to parallel that with baseball to understand it. But, yeah, I mean, I look at that and think of the Dodgers. I mean, every year they're spending all this money and they're never getting anywhere. Now, this past year, they finally did. So, maybe next year they'll have their chance. So
that's the thought. Yeah, I mean, PSG has, brought in world-renowned players like Neymar on their team. So you think with a player like that, they should be able to do something, relatively good in the Champions League.
Yeah.
But as we've been finding out, at least for PSG, money does not always buy happiness, and that's just a fickle, funny thing that people have to try to figure out and deal with in that aspect. But either way, those are your quick headlines. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we've got NFL free agency, combine notes, and so much more. Some tags are being handed out. Hopefully it's not freeze tag or stuck in the mud tag. I was never very good at those. But some franchise tags being handed out. We'll be back with more on the cheap seats following this message. We'll be right back.
This is Ezekiel Drews, host of the podcast, A Star Wars Story, here on Public House Media. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media. Once you are done with this episode, I hope you'll come check out my show, Podcast, A Star Wars Story, where we talk about anything and everything Star Wars. A new show comes out bi-monthly. Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes so you never miss an episode of Podcast, A Star Wars Story. Thanks again for checking out the following broadcast on Public House Media.
It's a revolution.
Welcome back inside the cheap seats. I'm Baxter Colburn. That's Matt Coyne as we rock on with the program. Remember, you can check out the show by heading over to our Facebook page, The Cheap Seats Sports Podcast is how it's labeled on Facebook, or if you just want to tag us, it's the Cheap Seats PHM, because we are presented by Public House Media. All right, Matt, the NFL Combine took place over this last weekend, and it got a lot of people talking, and of course, NFL free agency is the next closest big thing that we're taking part from. The NFL draft is 48 days away.
Yeah.
I think that some people get really excited about that. I mean, depends on how desperate or many needs your team has, right?
Yeah, I always enjoy it. I mean, with being a Steelers fan, it's never really great. I mean, it's normally low.
I mean,
key,
you guys always have high 20s in the draft picks.
Yeah,
that's not a bad thing.
No, I mean
means you got a good team.
Absolutely, and every year they don't do a lot of things. They don't make a lot of trades. If they do, it's the low rounds, and,
right?
And you don't know because they're drafting these all-star wide receivers in the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th round.
Yeah.
No, actually not 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th round.
And they're working out for them.
Yeah, but I just enjoy watching. I mean, especially the first 2 rounds, I enjoy watching.
Right, and I would agree with you on that one as well, too. But my question to you in this, Matt, is, and I know a lot of people are divided about this, do you think the NFL Combine actually helps? These guys are running around in shorts, not really taking any hits. Just because you can, catch a ball or, defend a fake dummy doesn't mean you can contend against Antonio Brown on defense or, try to make a pass when Michael Bennett's sprinting into your face if you're Sam Darnold. Like, how much stock do you put into these players and what they do?
I go back and forth, and every year you always find, I say no, it's not worth it. And here's why I say that. Because every year there are a couple players I feel that move up the board. There's a couple that move down. Is it worth all the hoopla just for that? And obviously it is. I'm not one of these multi-billion-dollar owners. For example, this year, Lamar Jackson seems like he's just moving right up the board. And so great. That's great for him, But obviously every year there are people moving down the board. So, I think it's weird that this year – that it was Sam Darnold, right, who said he's not throwing. I don't know if he ended up throwing. I don't think he did.
I don't think he did, no.
So yeah, I go back and forth with this, but I would say overall no, just because 2 or 3 players it makes a difference with. I feel like, is it really worth bringing all these players in just to do that?
Right, exactly. And that's, I mean, obviously it does work out for certain players. You know, we've seen the revolutionary story of the man from UCF, Shaquem Griffin as well, too. He doesn't have one hand, or he's missing one hand, and he ran, what was it, a 4.34 or something like that at the 40?
4.3,
like,
high
just
4.3,
unbelievable. And all of a sudden he's flying up draft boards.
Yeah.
And people are noticing him because he's put up just a phenomenal performance. I mean, he did 20 reps on the bench press as well, too. I think it was 220 they have to bench or something like that. I forget what it is that they have to bench.
I forget.
And he did it 20 times. He obviously had a prosthetic arm as well, too, to help do everything. But, like, guys that might not have been given an opportunity to succeed and maybe were written off because they went to a quote-unquote small school like UCF or whatever there might be the issue is. Or
the national champions.
Right. I'm sorry. They might get a ring. Jeez. That whole thing is that's ridiculous. But either way, I think, it has its positives, it has its negatives, but for a lot of these bigger players that we already know about, it's like, what are you gaining out of it? It really should be for those guys that are maybe projected to be, third round or lower picks, I feel like. So we'll see. Did you see the video of Roger Goodell running the 40?
I did. That was entertaining.
He was these guys run it in suits too. I mean, Rich Eisen runs it every year now too, obviously for charity, but he and Roger both ran it this year again. And Roger did a low, like 5. It was like, 5.3 or something like that, I think. That's not terrible. Ran 40 yards in the
suit,
NFL office in the suit. It's not terrible. I mean, I'd be curious how fast they could run if they were not in suits. I mean, I don't know. It depends on how nice of a suit you have, I guess. They have that, some are more constricting or not than others. So
yeah, we should go out in the snow.
Run a 40 in the snow?
Run a 40, see how we do.
If I can wear cleats, I'll be happy to do that. I might have to run through like a foot of snow, but it's resistance.
I'll end up tripping and falling.
We both probably would just hit a patch of ice and whee! Or go to like Walmart and run it in the Walmart. Walmarts are more than 40 yards long.
Yeah.
Go inside, just book it down an aisle.
Yeah, we should do that.
I'm sure that wouldn't be.
By the time they realize, we'd be out.
Right. Be halfway, just time it so we run right down that main strip right out the door.
Yep.
You're good. No one knows. Like, what was that? I don't know. I thought that was kind of funny though, in that regards. I mean, I ran the 40 in high school and college. I don't remember what I ran it in. I think I ran it like high 4s. That's all I remember.
Yeah, that's impressive.
Semi-fast.
Yeah, that's impressive.
Oh boy! But so we got a big thing to talk about in the NFL free agent market because the Philadelphia Eagles got better, and some people are happy about this. Others are just glad they don't have to deal with it. The NFC East is obviously terrified now because the Philadelphia Eagles made a trade for Michael Bennett from the Seattle Seahawks. Seattle did this because not only did they want to clear up cap space, but they wanted to, as they said, quiet their locker room. Which I think says a lot about a player because Michael Bennett's a talker. We know the Bennett brothers as a whole are talkers. Green Bay had to deal with Martellus Bennett. You've had to deal with him as well, too, and he's played for New England.
Yep.
I mean, we know what it's like to deal with the Bennett brothers. And, yeah, they are very outspoken players. They're fairly good players, but they're fairly outspoken, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, he's one of those players is his mouth worth his skill.
Yeah.
And, obviously, when in the NFL, I mean, he's a great player. I mean, I think, yes, he is, but you got that to deal with. And, with the Eagles, I mean, I think he'll fit in well then. That team seems like they have a good whole, those players have a really good brotherhood, however you want to say that. So, maybe they'll bring him in and he'll learn real quick to keep his mouth shut.
I mean, that's the thing. I feel like Pete Carroll would be the better coach at shutting a player up than Doug Peterson would be.
It's funny. As you said that, I was thinking, I don't know that, though, because Pete Carroll, Doug Peterson seems like he really has his players trained really well. And
should really train the fans to stop eating poop and all that other stuff. But, gosh.
Yeah, I mean, Pete Carroll just seems like more of in my opinion, seems more of kind of a player's coach, that term.
He is. He probably gets hyped up and all that.
Yeah, so I mean, Doug Peterson seems like that guy who's just like, dude, Michael.
Yeah.
Cool it.
Yeah, knock it off.
Yeah.
I mean, well, Michael Bennett too. I mean, he's been to the Pro Bowl the last 3 years. He has 54 total sacks during his 9-year career. He spent the first 4 years of his career, I always forget about this, he was a Tampa Bay Buccaneer for the first 4 years of his career. Then he's been at Seattle for 5. But, 54 sacks during his time in the NFL thus far. Last season was tied for his third best amount of sacks. He had 8.5 sacks last year. He's a good player. I mean, there's no doubting his ability when it comes to that. But yeah, Seattle right now, I think as a whole though, is kind of going through this phasing out period because now all these rumors are that Richard Sherman's not going to be back next year, and we'll talk about that here in just a minute as well too, about possible landing spots for Richard Sherman. But what's going on with Seattle? I mean, it seems like they're trying to sell the house just to keep a couple pieces. Like, you can't just keep the couch and forget about the roof and the siding and the garage.
Yeah, they had those few years where they were really successful. I mean, obviously they made it to the Super Bowl and twice, right?
They did.
Yeah. So, they've had their time, and I feel like maybe they feel like their window's closing. I don't know what that is, but yeah, I agree with you. Getting rid of him, and it looks like Sherman's out on the way out too. That's that's a lot to overcome. I feel
is. No, I would completely agree with you on that one. It's intriguing to see what happens with Philadelphia now. It's intriguing to see what happens with Seattle as well too, because they're obviously all in on Russell Wilson, but you're kind of taking away some of the better players surrounding him. Marshawn Lynch left. He retired, but he left the franchise. Richard Sherman's wanting to get out. Michael Bennett's leaving now as well too. I mean, you've got Earl Thomas and Cam Chancellor, but I mean, you can't win a Super Bowl with just two really good safeties. You need the pass rush and everything else to get there as well too.
Yeah. So, I mean, we'll see. I always say I like to, as a fan, I want to know. I feel like I know best, and I know that's not the
case.
We
all do, right? Don't we all feel like we've got that thought, that feeling, I guess.
Yeah, but I tell you, Eagles though, they're just already won the Super Bowl, and they're already building on top of that.
Right.
So.
You're doing something right then if you can only get better and win the Super Bowl and then get better after that. One of the notable transactions too, Alec Ogletree, the linebacker from the Rams, got traded to the Giants for several late draft picks. I wouldn't read too much into this. The Giants are just trying to help shore up and get a little bit more depth. Ogletree is a decent young player, but not much to really need to worry about in my opinion, honestly.
Yeah. Rams seem like they're. I thought I was interested in them this year. I thought this past year. I thought.
I think a lot of people were.
Yeah, they seem like they're getting their stuff together, and but yeah, I mean, I'm not looking into this too much. I think you're right. It's the Giants more kind of seeing what they can do here after this dismal year.
Right, exactly. And the draft will have a lot of opportunity for them to get better as well too. Mm-hmm. A couple other NFL free agent things I think we need to talk about. We obviously heard Christian and Max talk about this a lot, making the case for Keenum, for Case Keenum and Kirk Cousins in Minnesota over on Wednesday, if you missed that show. Kirk Cousins, more than likely, he's the best free agent available by all accounts, is what everyone's saying. Likely is going to sign with the Vikings for what the reports are saying. I think that makes the most sense, in all honesty, for him. I don't go to the Jets if I'm Kirk Cousins. I want to try to win, not be a part of a rebuilding process. Even though I might be a younger quarterback, I've done my time. I suffered through Washington for a couple of years. Still got him to the playoffs, but I mean, Minnesota's a piece away, I feel like, from either winning or getting at least to a Super Bowl. Yeah, well, we talked about this last week. I think it makes the most sense for him. I think it makes the most sense for the Vikings with who's out there. Great for Case Keenum, but as we also said last week, when it was his time to shine, he did not. Right.
And, that's not saying that Kirk Cousins isn't going to do that, but he's proven. He's done it before. And,
exactly.
I think that this is a great move for the Vikings. Because here's the thing. There's a guy coming back in Green Bay by the name of Aaron Rodgers that is going to
still playing.
Yeah. So the Vikings, they got to do something. I mean, they're not. They had their year. They had their chance.
They did.
That was their freebie.
They're more than likely never going to get that type of an opportunity again, unless Aaron were to have flipped teams and said, all right, I'm going to come play for Minnesota. Like, Minnesota, that was the one shot they had. And they made the most of it, but it wasn't enough.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that they're just, I'm not saying they're not going to compete with Green Bay, but they're not going to have the cakewalk like they had this past year.
No, and I will say this too, as a supporter and a fan of the Packers as well too. What the Packers do in the free agent market and do in the draft is going to dictate how they do this year, because we clearly can find out and understand, like, yes, Aaron Rodgers makes you a better team, but if your defense is still atrocious and your running game is spotty and your offensive line is always injured, it doesn't matter how good your quarterback is.
Yeah.
Unless you're Tom Brady and you can somehow divinely take over each person on the team and, have vicariously live through all of them and just make it happen. I don't know, it's some weird gypsy voodoo stuff that's going on there in New England, but it's not realistic. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
So I'm not officially sure. People keep forgetting too that Drew Brees is still technically a free agent, but he's going to re-sign with the Saints.
Yeah.
I'm sure he's probably. I don't think he's waiting to see what the Aaron Rodgers deal is, just because Drew Brees is obviously far older. I still think he's going to command, 3 years more, 4 years more? For a high amount of cash, but I don't think if he's going to be smart. He needs weapons. He knows the defense is getting better and needs help too. Drew Brees isn't one of those money-grabbing QBs. He's won a Super Bowl. He's done a lot.
Yeah, and the Saints are a team that they're close too.
Yeah,
and
after not being, they're finally close.
Yeah, which is they've always interested me. I've always Drew Brees. I've always been a fan of his, but it's interesting how they were great, and then out of nowhere they, left that they weren't good, but then all of a sudden they're back.
It's amazing it's amazing how good they're. And this is somebody that will argue and say this is why the draft matters, because they had the Rookie of the Year and they had the Defensive Rookie of the Year last year.
Yeah.
So, and both of them were massive, massive components of their team doing well. Alvin Kamara, oh my goodness, people are already shouting Hall of Famer. I'm like, okay, he's only played a year, but still, what he did, sharing the carries and the numbers he got was still incredible. He made the most of every time he touched the ball. And obviously the Saints defense did a phenomenal job, except obviously in the playoffs, but that's neither here nor there. You got to tackle with your hands.
Yeah. I actually in fantasy I traded for him straight up.
Nice.
For LeGarrette Blount.
Oh gosh, did you win that deal?
Oh yeah, man. Yeah. And we're in a keepers league, so of course I kept it. But anyway, I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. I feel like there's one other guy in free agency that is not really being talked about. Two guys rather that are both running backs: Carlos Hyde and Dion Lewis. Carlos Hyde has been rumored to be going to the Colts, and I think if I'm Indianapolis right now, I'm sitting here saying, do I want an established, hard-nosed running back that hails from Naples, Florida? Shout out Carlos. I played high school at the same time he did. What up? Or do I want to take a chance on a rookie that's being touted as the best player in the draft, Saquon Barkley? Because all reports right now are that the Browns are going to take a quarterback.
Yeah.
That's the report right now. So if I'm the Colts at 2, I say, do I sign Carlos Hyde, or do I also grab Saquon Barkley just to be greedy, or do I address a different need at 2 and take Carlos Hyde for a couple-year contract? How do you read this situation?
Yeah, oh, sorry.
Careful. It's all good. Smacking the microphone.
Yeah, it's hard for me. I always say, with the running back, especially the running back that we're in right now, the type of running back that really succeeds in this league, they only have a few-year window. You're not seeing the Jerome Bettises anymore. You're not seeing the of course I say Jerome Bettis, but you're not seeing those running backs that are,
the Willie Parkers.
Yeah. Oh, man. But those ones that are playing, 7, 8, 9, 10 years of really high-quality football as a running back, that's just not who they are anymore. So I really struggle taking a running back. I was talking to you yesterday and saying I'm cool if the Steelers get rid of Le'Veon Bell.
Yeah.
I'm cool with it, and a lot of people are, what?
Which many people would freak out about.
Yeah, and I just think he's so full of himself, but that's besides the point. And 2,
true though.
Yeah, but it's just that running back position. I don't know how old Carlos Hyde is, but
early 20s.
Yes,
he's had a good career.
Yeah, so he's had a good career, and he can do it. But at the same time, like I said, you just don't know with the running back position. He's one injury away from being done.
Yeah, he's had 3 seasons in the NFL so far.
Okay.
4 rather. I'm sorry. All for the San Francisco 49ers. He has amassed 2,700 yards rushing and 21 touchdowns. He averages 4.2 yards a carry.
Yeah, that's
not bad.
That's impressive. And I didn't realize his average yard per carry was that high, but still, I still struggle. I mean, if they can get him, at a reasonable cost, why not? And maybe they'll make the trade that we talked about last week and have 3 first-round picks, and
also a possibility.
Yeah, and then get him too.
Right.
Then,
yeah. I mean, and this too. Speaking about Carlos, this last season was the first season that he averaged below 4 yards a carry. So 3.9 was the first time. He did battle some injuries earlier in his career. For those that had him on their fantasy teams in 2015, he only played 7 games. He played 13 games in 16. Played all 16 games this last year, and then was not a starter his rookie year in 2014, but still played in 14 games and did a fairly good job amassing, only 333 yards. So he's never rushed for 1,000 yards in a season, but he is that Jerome Bennis bruiser, beat you up. But he's also a fairly decent receiver out of the backfield as well too. He had 59 catches last season as well too.
Wow! Yeah,
so not bad.
And it's funny because I just said there's not that type of running back anymore, but I guess the Colts already. Gore is kind of the exception of that. I mean, I feel like he's been in this league for,
and that's the thing too. Frank
years.
Gore is, You're kind of. I feel like you're kind of getting a younger Frank Gore if you sign Carlos Hyde.
Was Frank Gore still at San Francisco?
I don't know. I don't remember if he was or not.
That'd
honestly,
be interesting.
Might have been.
Yeah.
Not officially sure. Last person we want to talk about before we jump to our quick break here to bring in Kevin Holden for our Calling Home segment. Do you have any quick thoughts about these players? Allen Robinson, Richard Sherman, Malcolm Butler, Sammy Watkins. Any thoughts about those players at all and what they might do, where they might go? Are they being overhyped?
I mean, Allen Robinson, he's one of those ACL tears.
Right.
And that injury just always scares me after that. And
rightfully so.
Yeah, you said Richard Sherman? Yeah, I mean,
he's not a free agent, but he's rumored to be traded or going somewhere.
Yeah. I think any team who gets him, he's one of those.
Does he go to New England just to stick it to the league? Especially if they get rid of Malcolm Butler, might.
That makes sense. I mean, he's one of those ones. Is his mouth worth his skill? And I mean, he's a shutdown corner. I mean, he is. I think any team would instantly on defense be better. So, and then with Sammy Watkins, I think he's one of those wide receivers. I mean, obviously he's been playing well, but I think any of those players are going to make anybody better, but none of them are, I don't look at as saying game changer other than maybe Richard Sherman.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that one as well too. Yeah, Sammy Watkins, a shell of what he used to be. Malcolm Butler, he made a play, one play. Deion Lewis could be a shady, good second running back for a team.
Sorry.
Shout out. There we go. All right, we're going to run to a break. When we come back, Kevin Holden, CBS 58 Sports Director from Milwaukee, will be here with us to talk about the Green Bay Packers. I know I'm excited. It's the Cheap Seats.
Excited.
Back with more right after this on Public House Media. This is Baxter Colburn, host of the Verse of the Day podcast on Public House Media. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media. Once you're done with this episode, I hope you'll come check out my show, Verse of the Day. In Verse of the Day, we talk about practical examples on how each verse in the Bible can be applied to our daily lives and draw us a little bit closer to all that God has to offer. A new show comes out every single day, so don't forget to subscribe on iTunes so you never miss an episode of Verse of the Day podcast. Thanks again for checking out the following broadcast on Public House Media.
Baby, take control now. We can't even slow down.
Welcome back inside the studio for another edition of the Cheap Seats. I'm Baxter Colburn alongside Matt Coyne as we are fans of the game, calling it as we see it. Remember, the show comes out every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. If you're a Monday person, you can catch Christian Heimel and Jonathan Lauder on Mondays. You can catch Jeff Childs and Max Wolpoff on Wednesdays, and you've got myself and Matt Coyne here on Fridays. So last week, Matt, we went home to Pittsburgh. We got to hang out with one of your buddies, talk about the Pittsburgh sports market and all that fun business, talked a lot of Pens hockey, and I was very lost for a majority of that conversation. But today we get to talk, we're calling home is our segment. We call back to somebody in the market that we are a fan of and get to chat with somebody that, they might joke about it, but on paper they have a pretty good idea of what they're doing because obviously they've seen a thing or two. And today I'm really excited because we have a good friend of mine. He's the sports director at CBS 58 down in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. It's Kevin Holden, and is here with us now on the Cheap Seats. A very good day to you, Kevin. Welcome to the program, sir.
Good morning, Baxter. It's always a great day to talk football, but especially this time of year when you've got, the draft is coming up, you've got free agency coming up, and teams making some pretty fun decisions. This is the time. I mean, this is when teams get built, and the Packers and all the folks in Wisconsin, I think, are more interested in what's going on with the Packers 6 months from a game than they are with just about anybody else in the market right now, because it's a fascinating story. They have a lot of rebuilding to do.
You're right, exactly, and I think that was the big part about it too. When the new GM took over, everyone was like, "Oh, finally, maybe we can actually get a player signed that it doesn't have 1 year left or will leave us midway through the season and all this other craziness." But obviously the NFL draft is a talking point for many folks. The Packers have a bevy of draft picks this year, Kevin. How many of those do you think that are going to be more on the defensive side? Because we obviously heard the Fire Capers chants for years, and now that's finally done, and we're getting this new wave of people in. But are the Packers going to be more defensive focused this season for the draft, you think?
I think it's an essential for them at this point. I mean, they've got a lot of rebuilding to do on that side, more even than the offensive side of the ball. For one, you've got to fix the corner position that was just a mess and has been for a couple of years, going back to the NFC title game when they were literally throwing anything at Julio Jones and they had nothing to I was like, can we put this cardboard cutout here? Will this do something? Maybe this cutout 6'5" as opposed to our 5'8" corners that we have trying to guard Julio Jones. But you've also got to get some help at an edge rush position. You got to get some help in the linebacking core. So yeah, the answer is it's going to be a defensively focused draft. The funny thing is, Ted Thompson has had these too in the last several years, several of these defensive focused drafts. The draft may not look that much different than it did with Ted this first year. I'd say of the 12 picks, I mean, there are a couple needs on offense, receiver, probably a little bit on interior line. I would say at least 7 and maybe 8 of the picks will be defensive focused.
Wow. Yeah, that definitely makes a lot of sense, though, like you were saying, for a lot of the spots that need to be filled.
Hey, Kevin, Matt here. The Packers this year, do you see them drafting or even signing a tight end, somebody like a Jimmy Graham?
Yeah, Matt, I think they're going to need one because Lance Kendricks is about all they've got right now, and they've got to get some production out of that. Yes, right? Your boy Lance Kendricks, Milwaukee native. Yeah, that's about 20 catches. So you're about 60 shy of what you probably need from a tight end.
Yes,
at this stage of the game. But and the other half of it is, of course, with Jordy Nelson showing some signs of age and Randall Cobb not living up to expectations. The tight end position is as important for the Packers today as it's been since Jermichael Finley, which means they got to go get somebody. And I think. Rather than trying to go and do that through the draft, that seems to make more sense as a free agent signing. I don't know if Jimmy Graham is necessarily the answer at 31, but there are some younger options, some Trey Burtons, guys like that. You've got Benjamin Watson, you've got Austin Seferian-Jenkins. You got these guys that are sort of mid-range options, but would fit well with Rodgers, specifically in Green Bay. They wouldn't have to spend Jimmy Graham money, but they could get some decent performance out of those guys. I think that's where they target, and I think they absolutely need to get one of those guys.
Well, I feel like every draft or every free agent period that comes up, there's always rumors of some Badger being rumored as a possibility to go to the Packers. Like, oh, the hometown story, that's something like that. I saw one mock draft a couple days ago from Bleacher Report that suggested the Packers might take Troy Fumagalli late, like 5 or 6 or 7 even. Any thoughts about Troy and how he might fit into the Packers schemes at all?
he'd be a good fit if he's a late pick. Yeah, if they use an early pick on Fumagalli, I don't know about that. But down at the 6th round, 7th round, this is where the Packers have found some gems over the years. And Fumagalli could be one of those guys. He could be one that comes in and develops eventually into the kind of tight end the Packers need. He's not going to address this year's need, I don't think. He'd be a guy who could take a couple of years to develop. But, and as you know, Baxter, it's like you get a Badger that gets drafted by the Packers, and you can follow his every move. It's like, what did he have for breakfast this morning? Where did he go? So Fumagalli knows that if that happens for 2 years, he's going to have – it's like Jared Abbrederis. Right. What did he ever do in an NFL game? But we knew everything this guy was doing for 2 years. So instant spotlight for Fumagalli if it happened, and it could. It's at least a decent fit, but not an immediate fit.
Right, I would agree with that as well, too. We're talking with CBS 58 Sports Director out of Milwaukee, Kevin Holden, here on our Calling Home segment here on the Cheap Seats. Kevin, now, you obviously have to do your job professionally, but you can be a fan as well, too. Do you have any dream free agent signings you hope the Packers sign that, even though it might not be realistic, you're like, gosh, if they would just sign this player or these 2 or 3 players, we'd be good. We'd be set.
Well, I think if you look at this team as a fan, as a journalist, as whatever, it all centers around Aaron Rodgers. Everything that this team is doing in its timeline has to do with where Aaron Rodgers is in his career, how healthy is he, how able is he to lead this team back to the Super Bowl. And so my dream signing, if I'm just throwing everything else out the window, is to pair him with an elite receiver that he can pair up with and just go nuts, and Allen Robinson is that guy from Jacksonville. If he's a guy that Rodgers could pair up with and could have 100 catches or more in Green Bay and put up he could be one of the best receivers in the league statistically if you could pair him with Rodgers, even at this stage of Rodgers' career. And that's the thing where his career needs a boost after these last couple of years. You see guys slipping a little bit. Now the injury that cost Rodgers a lot of last year. So you get a guy like Allen Robinson in there, and Rodgers is going to feel like it's 2010 all over again, and it will make the other guys better. Jody Nelson gets a jump because he doesn't have to deal with the best corner on the other team. I mean, that's, again, it's out there in dreamland, but man, Allen Robinson and that team would be dangerous.
All right, Matt. So we were talking about this earlier in the show, Kevin, and Matt brought up Allen Robinson just as a whole, and he was playing the ACL card, and he's just worried about the ACL card with Allen Robinson. I mean, obviously they're professionals; they're going to recover. But how do you see an ACL-ridden wide receiver maybe fitting in, though? Or kind of what I'm hearing from you made it sound like you were fine with it, regardless.
Yeah, I mean, you got to go with great talent, number one, and that's I feel like in this case that could be something that if you're going to go in that position, if you're going to try to throw something at a dream, that's your guy. But look, the ACL thing is a legitimate concern. You have to know, especially if you're bringing somebody in, that you may have an injury history. And remember, Brian Gutekunst doesn't have the easiest job in the world because people want him not just to go into free agency. They want him to succeed in free agency. Right. The idea is that it's a venue that Ted Thompson didn't use effectively. That's the narrative, right? So if Gutekunst goes in and spends money on free agents and they don't pan out, that actually looks bad on him. Right. That's going to be where they turn on him rather quickly. So there's a little bit of pressure in my mind. It's not just to get free agents, but to make them work in this first year.
Kevin, during the Combine, there's a player from the national champions, UCF. We were joking about that. That's Shaquem Griffin, the one-handed linebacker. What are your thoughts on him?
Watching him in the Combine, it was really an inspirational story. It really was, because this is a guy that has not shied away from pursuing his dream and didn't shy away from being a star at the Combine. I mean, the Combine is such an odd thing because it's this measure of player values. Okay, how many times can you bench press this? How many times can you, or what's your time in the 40-yard dash? And then all you hear about when you get to the league has to do with intangibles and leadership. And it's funny, you measure them in the numbers, then you draft them and you deal with them, right. And you value them based on all the other things. So if this guy can make it in the league, I think he will continue to be an inspirational story. And those combine numbers were fantastic.
Yeah.
I mean, he's, who knows if that transitions, but if you had to pick one guy who's overcome enough that you think he could be a leader on an NFL team, that he could be someone to draw inspiration from, that's your guy. I mean, that's seeing what he did in Indianapolis makes me, kind of excited to see what could happen for him in an NFL career.
Exactly, and I think if you're kind of joking from a Packers fan perspective, Nick Perry's like, I've been playing with one hand for most of my career because I always got a club on as well too. So it was like, I'm not nearly getting as good at numbers here. What the heck? But I do find that kind of funny though, and I did think it was really cool though that Von Miller came out the other day too and said, I would love to play with Shaquem Griffin. So I think that's kind of a cool thing when arguably the best linebacker in the league comes out and says, I want him on my team. So that's pretty cool in my opinion. Last thing for you today, Kevin. Last thing for you, Kevin, before we let you run, is the backup situation in Green Bay was less than stellar. That's the nice way to put it last season. And Packer fans have their mixed reactions, of course. And now we see all these rumors about Kirk Cousins going to Minnesota, so the Packer fans are starting to sweat a little bit, saying, well, now that might be that piece that they were missing. So my question is, God forbid, if Aaron Rodgers gets hurt again, or just in general, do the Packers sign a veteran QB at all during free agency? And if so, who's your best guess? Is it Sam Bradford, Case Keenum, anybody else that has a clue and can throw the ball more than 10 yards down the field?
Yeah, this is a tough position for the Packers to be in, because if you're a quarterback that has any possibility whatsoever of being a starter in the NFL, someone is going to pay a boatload of money for you and bring you in, and you've got the Clevelands of the world. These teams that every year need a quarterback are going to be looking at all of these guys. So if you talk about Bradford, Keenum, those guys that could end up needing jobs from Minnesota, they would be terrific backups for the Packers, but they would also cost a lot of money. And this is a tough position too for Gutekunst, because you've got this combo of, do you draft and develop a quarterback because that didn't go so well this last time, or do you go and sign someone in free agency to be a backup? And the truth is, seeing what happened last year, the Packers are probably smart to go and get some sort of backup quarterback, but I don't think he's at that level. I don't think he's a Keenum or a Bradford. And by the way, those two are the same age, I learned when I was
that's
doing a little. Yeah, my pre-preparation this morning showed that they were both 30, and I'm like, how is that possible?
Wow.
Bradford's been in the league for 27 years. He started when he was 3, I think.
It feels like it. He's got, he's on his 17th ACL. Like, it's ridiculous.
But yeah, I think it's smart to go get a backup quarterback, because again, you don't want the season, to go down the tubes the way it did this past year. But you also have to understand that under the cap, this is going to be a hit of a few $1 million, maybe several million, depending on how far up you go. I mean, if you're going to get a Bradford or a Keenum, you're taking a pretty major hit that should go either to your defense, to wide receiver, interior lineman, some other position that could use that money probably better than a backup.
True. I completely agree. All right, Kevin, we have to let you run, but before we do, we obviously want to let you tell people where they can find you if they want to check you out, because obviously you do a lot of different great coverage for the sports world, especially Wisconsin sports, but you also live a pretty fun life when you're not working. You're down in Arizona right now, too, checking out spring training, and you and your wife, I feel like, are always traveling to different baseball stadiums, and you have a new jersey, I feel like, from every other team that every once in a while, too. So you're a fun follow, but where can people find you on social media, sir?
If you check it at 321Q Kevin, that's 321CUE Kevin on Twitter. That's probably where the most fun takes place. You could, if you look for me on Facebook, I'm there too. Nothing fancy there, but the Twitter stuff is a lot of fun stuff. And yes, we're doing spring training stadiums. This year, my wife and I still have 3 spring training stadiums that we haven't been to. And so we're getting those in the next 3 days. So we'll have knocked out all. There's 23 total. So we will have knocked out all 23 after this. So don't tell my day job where I am. They may come and try to find me.
I'll be like, shouldn't you be back here working? Be like, yeah, it's research. That's what I'm doing. Gosh, thanks, Kevin. It's always a pleasure, sir. And we look forward to hopefully having you back on again soon.
Thanks a lot, Kevin.
Baxter, Matt. Really appreciate it, you guys. Nice to talk some football. I'm sure there'll be plenty more to talk about here in the off season.
Absolutely, sir. Thank you for your time today. There goes Kevin Holden, sports director at CBS 58 down in Milwaukee. Great to hear from him. We are running to our final break. When we come back, we're going to do a little shimmy shake through the weekend and get excited. It is Selection Sunday and so much more. We'll be back with more to wrap it up on the Cheap Seats presented by Public House Media after these messages.
Host of Beauties and Headcanons here on Public House Media. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media. Once you're done with this episode, I hope you'll come and check out my show, Beauties and Headcanons, where we talk about nerdy theories, games, TV shows, books, movies, you name it. We're here to talk nerdy to you. A new show comes out every Friday. Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes so you never miss an episode of Beauties and Headcanons. Thanks again for checking out the following broadcast on Public House Media.
Welcome back to the Cheap Seats presented by Public House Media. I'm Baxter Colburn alongside Matt Coyne as we get ready for our final segment of the show where we talk about the weekend outlook. And I need to take 2.3 seconds to gloat because I went 4-1 last week with our predictions because I put so much time, thought, and effort into studying.
Well, congratulations, but I went 5 and...
no. You went 0-5, I think is what you meant to say.
Wow, okay.
Yeah. So I was 1-4 last week. Matt was 2-3. Now, yeah, there you go. It's probably what it was. So now I'm 5-5 on our predictions. Matt is 2-8. But this weekend, as we do want to make sure to mention that it is Selection Sunday. Of course, this weekend is going to be very dominated by people checking that out. The first 4 get underway March 13 and 14. And then it's all culminating to, we're going to San Antonio this year, Final Four. And we heard about this on Wednesday. This is the first Final Four championship game that is being played outside of a football stadium since 1996.
Really? Wow.
Right? I was floored when I heard Max and Christian talk about that on Wednesday. I could not believe that.
Yeah, I missed that. I missed that part. I'm sorry, Max and Christian, but yeah, I don't
listen to your show.
I don't know how I missed that, to be honest with you. But anyways, yeah, that is interesting because they always, every year you hear the complaints about it being in the football stadium. So.
I know. Who knows? We'll see if it ends up being a better thing or not. So maybe it'll be more intimate, closer venue this year. I don't know. All right, our 5 games that we're predicting this week. We have the Cavs and the Lakers. So I'm going to be waiting for those LeBron to LA chants during this game.
2 weekends in a row he's playing in maybe his future home.
I've got Cleveland. I can't fight against it.
I'm going to fight one more weekend.
Are you?
I'm going to one more. And I'm going to pick
You're going to pick the Lakers? You can't possibly pick the Lakers.
I got to catch up.
So you're going to just defy me and everything, I guess, here and go from there?
I don't know. Who are you picking next?
I got OKC next.
I can't go against that.
No one can.
I mean, San
Antonio is a hot mess
but still, I still got to go with OKC.
Yeah, San Antonio versus OKC is our second game. Our third game is the Celtics versus the Bulls. I've got Boston winning this game. Can't possibly think the Bulls are going to pull an upset. But you do, don't you? Or don't you? Or is this a hockey game?
No, I'm sorry. This is my fault. This is baseball. This is Chicago versus Boston.
Oh, this is awkward.
I'm sorry.
Well, go Red Sox then.
This is awkward.
Oh,
I got to go with the Cubs with this.
That's fine.
That was my fault, everybody. That wasn't Baxter.
Boo. All right, soccer, Man United versus Liverpool. I've got Liverpool winning this game.
I'm going to pick Man U again. Last time.
It worked out well for you last time.
Yeah, it worked out well, yeah.
Let's go Reds. And then, is this baseball, or what am I picking this last game?
What, this is...
I have Chicago versus LA. I was like, there's a lot of Chicago's, a lot of LA's. This could be the fire in the galaxy. I just need to know where I'm going here.
Yeah, this is baseball as well.
Okay, I've got the Cubs.
Yeah, me too.
Okie doke. Yeah. There you go. Those are our picks. I've got a 3-game lead on Matt currently, 5-5 to his 2-8. So we'll see if Matt can pull a couple games back. I'm sure you will.
Yeah,
it's the sports world. Crazy business happens.
Yeah.
Last thing before we go is our poll question, Matt, which I think is, we've got 2 good ones today because we are rebels, as we say here on Fridays, and we do 2 poll questions. First and foremost, I think the most important poll question that we will ever ask in the history of the cheap seats. Pizza Hut or Papa John's?
That's a good one.
This coming off the back, of course, of Peyton Manning selling his 31 Papa John's franchises. So hence the reason and the context. If you're just joining the program, you're like, what does this have to do with anything? I like the idea of one sports question and one life question every week. I think we need more life questions.
I agree.
Because this will get the common man fired up.
Yeah.
Because I know people that will die for Papa John's. And I know people that will die for Pizza Hut. I have to go on the side of Pizza Hut. Because no one out pizzas the Hut. Duh.
Well, and I mean, when you live in an area that you only have Pizza Hut, that's what you got to say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pizza Hut for sure gets my vote on this one.
Okay.
I like how they do it. And now I really want to go get a pepperoni pizza from Pizza Hut.
And I don't want to just disagree, but we had a Papa John's where we lived, and we preferred Papa John's.
Ooh. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. And our second poll question, that these polls will both be posted on the Cheap Seats Facebook page, the Cheap Seats Sports Podcast on Facebook. The last question is, NFL free agency the biggest among all sports? And the reason I say this is because I feel like the NBA free agent market is really only popular when LeBron is on the move. The MLB, kind of, sort of. The NHL, I don't know anything about this. And then soccer is weird because you have transfer fees, which I like more, honestly. Instead of trying to trade for a player, they have transfer windows at the beginning and at the beginning of the season, and then during halfway through the season, they have these transfer windows. Cool. So if I want you on my team, I will submit a bid for you.
Okay.
And I will say I want to pay you $39 million for Matt. And I won't even, there's no years or details or that. It's like, I want to give, so when you hear about these deals of Ronaldo getting, a $173 million contract, that's them giving them the money. They usually obviously figure it out over a couple of years, but they buy you in a sense. It's kind of it's a little strange in modern day slavery, but anyway, I mean, if you don't get too deep into the details.
So you're pretty much paying the team to have the rights.
Correct, yeah.
So they do that in baseball some too.
Right, exactly.
The rights, for the international players.
And you're buying that player in that regard. So it's an interesting theory that I think would be kind of cool because, like I said, halfway through the season, they have a 2-week break because it's international break, but then they will have this transfer season again. So then players will move teams and people will be submitting bids. And
they should do an auction.
No, see, I see. The auction thing didn't go well when ESPN did their fantasy football draft this last year. I don't know if you heard about that.
Yeah, that's right.
Stick away from auctions and nationalities and
Okay, never mind.
Anyway, music. Can we cue music and get out of here, please? Oh goodness. Just to be clear, we are not supporting any of that. Anyway, those are the 2 poll questions. They'll be on the Cheap Seats Sports Podcast Facebook page. A special thanks to CBS 58 director out of Milwaukee, Kevin Holden, for being our guest today on the program. If you enjoy the show, why not subscribe on iTunes, Google Podcasts, and wherever you find your podcast. Give us a rating, give us a review. We love hearing from you. And don't forget to answer our daily poll questions and come follow us on the Facebook as well, too. Matt, any final thoughts, sir?
I never have final thoughts.
I know, but I feel like I asked just in case that one day.
I appreciate that. You just have a good weekend as
Hey, man, you too.
Usual. Thank you.
Thank you, man. Thank you. We'll be back here next Friday, and our brackets will probably be busted by that point. But either way, keep a lookout for it. We are going to be having an official Cheap Seats bracket challenge as well, too, so be on the lookout for details for that coming up soon. For Matt, Coyne, Kevin Holden, I'm Baxter Colburn. Thanks for joining us up here in the Cheap Seats. We'll see you guys next Friday. But more importantly, we'll see you on Monday when Christian and Jonathan are back for another episode. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you next time.